What they're pretending to offer to us is that, look, he's very, very sorry.
Sorry if people listened to what we'd said and then acted on that, what we'd said, and now regret what they had done. So that's regrettable. I'm sorry that that happened.
Well, he's sorry for what happened, but he's not sorry for what he did, from the sounds of that.
But if I can just take you back to the situation we were facing in 20 and 2021, it was the country was in a dire situation.
Caused entirely by those on your side of the fence, certainly not a virus.
And the Reserve Bank, we wanted to do everything we could to help the country get through that.
Oh, I really want to help us Australians.
I'm sorry that people listened to what we'd said and acted on that and now find themselves in a position they don't want to be in.
Yeah, okay, well, we know he's sorry about the outcome, what happened. He still hasn't said sorry for his involvement, for his role.
But...
All right, have a vomit bucket nearby. Yeah, all right, I'm plagiarising, PK.
At the time, we thought it was the right thing to do, and I think looking back, we would have chosen different language. You're right, people did not hear the caveats in what we said.
Oh, yes, it's not his fault. It's our fault for not hearing the caveats. Because all Australians listened to was what he said. Interest rates will stay low at least until 2024, RBA says, and directly under that caption, Philip Lowe says low interest rates will remain RBA policy, meaning the cash rate won't move. I mean, that's all we heard. There's no prospect of rapid bounce back. What's he talking about caveats?
My language was always caveated, but...
All right, we've got some Duper's Delight coming. You're about to see the face of true evil incarnate. And I'm not exaggerating.
I thought it was clear, but from the central bank kind of perspective, but the community didn't think it was clear. Well, they thought it was clear that we weren't raising rates till 24, didn't they?
Is that the face of someone who's truly sorry for what they did, feeling really bad? This is what truly lies within him. He is absolutely full of delight and joy at what he has achieved. And all those bankers overseas and back at the RBA and around Australia, they're all watching this, laughing their heads off, the same as he is.
That's a failure on our part. We didn't communicate the caveats clearly enough.
So it wasn't that they deceived people. It was that they didn't explain the caveat. It was a communication problem. And look, they're going to change their communication strategy to make sure that when people see something like this...
The economy's doing a lot better than what the Reserve Bank expected. They kept the cash rate on hold yesterday. It is at the record low of 0.1%. It's going to stay that way until 2024.
Australians won't be of the belief that rates will stay steady until 2024. They will actually read into it the exact opposite, because they will be told what the caveats are, unlike this time, where it's really hard to find out where they were.
And we've certainly learnt from that, and if you've had a look at the review of forward guidance, we're changing our approach. But we didn't get across the caveats clearly enough, and the community heard 2024. They didn't hear the conditionality.
Yeah, they didn't hear conditionality or caveats because there were none. They weren't even hidden behind, well, I couldn't find them, behind the headlines. You saw all the headlines. There didn't seem to be any, hang on a minute, like they sometimes do. They just want you to read the headlines, but they cover themselves. You can't even see where they've covered themselves in these articles. So not only are you not getting your money back or your jobs back, you're not even getting an apology. Now, that apology that didn't eventuate, well, that was initiated by Green Senator Nick McKim. It was echoed by Queen's National Senator Matt Canavan, going in hard for us Aussies. Sure, they ended up with zero result for us, while the RBA carries on relentlessly for profits for the banking system. Cynical might be thinking, hang on, this wasn't all theatre, was it? Just to placate us all, move on, you've lost everything, nothing gets done. No, I'm sure they're having a real go. It wasn't theatre, with our hard-hitting senators asking for an apology. They didn't even do that. They didn't even ask for an apology. They just asked him, well, what are your thoughts? Do you think you owe us an apology? That's not the end of this conundrum, because unfortunately for the RBA, there are other senators in there that they got a slightly different approach. And this was at a different hearing. And the money that they're lending out now, they originally didn't have. There's not enough deposits for fractional reserve lending, and people aren't paying back the loans at a rate required because most of the jobs have been sent overseas in the last 20 years. In the video description on the good senator's video, $188 billion thanks to taxpayers.
The same money that you've lent to them, they now lend back to you. Yeah, okay, thank you. So any money that's parked overnight, though, the RBA cash facility isn't actually being passed on, is it?
No.
They're actually creaming 3% off the top. I mean, they're borrowing at 0.1 and then they're making a 3% margin, so that's something like a 3,000%
Yes,
return.
but I suspect much of it was lent out.
Well, yeah.
And earning an even higher return for the bank.
So he's excited to say, yeah, well, they only get 3,000% profit while they've got it parked, but they get even more. If it's 6%, they've got a 6,000%, which is a 6% divided by 0.1%, which is a factor of 60. Think about that. They're getting 60 times return, not double, triple, but 60 times. But it's actually much worse, if you can believe it, because what's happened is we're borrowing from their side, the banks, at about 2.5% to 3% on the bond market. We're then lending it out at 0.1%. So we've also lost that profit margin as well as what they now charge us on the money. I've got a whole video coming out on this. It's unbelievable, the money trail.
Because it was put in place, as the Deputy Governor suggested, during those dire times of March 2020.
Now, if you needed any more proof that this whole thing was planned, is March 2020. That was before the modelling. That was when about 11 people had died, and they kept saying, we don't know what it's going to do. Let's take all these precautions. Now, the emergency declaration, this is very important, was on the 18th of March 2020. That's when the Constitution got suspended. The TFF kicked off, I think it was the 19th or the 20th. They waited 1 day to 2 days to implement this absolute criminal scheme while outside of the Constitution. Now, that's important because they can only borrow money against the public credit through appropriations, but this was done without appropriation.
And that's basically a free gift to the banks, isn't it, on behalf of the Australian taxpayer?
So I just harken back to this guy thinking it's absolutely hilarious when he gets to the point where he was explaining how we screwed the Australian people and we got away with it. Now, Renika's just said that's quite a gift from the taxpayer. Now you listen, this is this girl, the Deputy Governor in this hearing. Listen to her duper's delight.
Well,
I mean, it is.
Well, let's hear that laughter again.
well,
I mean, it is. I mean, it is. I mean, it is.
Here's something that'll put paid to their laughing at us.
That's something I think that, the banks should actually, in my view, be made repaid, because I fail to see why they should be getting, money at 0.1% while, hard-working Australians are now, copping it on the chin in regards to their home loans. Anyway, I'll leave that as a statement.
So while two senators were quite content with an apology that wasn't forthcoming, we've got this other senator, and there are others as well, who want the money to be repaid. Not only this money, by the way, we want to get the QE money back as well. That was just typed into their accounts. Well, we can type it back out. We want that money back. Now, I'll go out on a limb here. I'm pretty sure 100% of Australians would be in agreement. So we've got that statement that the money should be paid back from an elected representative, one of our people, on the parliamentary records, which is very important. And he said, purposely, I'll leave that as a statement. So you might be thinking, well, that's well and good, got the same result as the apology we didn't get. Well, no, because a person only makes a statement if they're planning to use that statement down the track. Otherwise, why would he make it? So I'm pretty sure there are people in Parliament who've got plans as a way to get that money back. And that's okay. But there's an old saying that if you want something done, do it yourself. And I'm actually kicking off a project. A lot of other people are running things as well to try and get that money back. I'm going to run one of my own, and it's going to be along the lines of campaign. I'll launch that later this week. So people, if you're interested, have a look at what I'm doing. These things, like he's made that statement, and that leaves it there for people to work off. Now, it's probably not just going to be months. It'll take years, maybe even a couple of election cycles. But there's nothing to stop us from continuously going until we get this money. Australian people, not just me, everyone. Because this was the single biggest heist of public money in the history of Australia. The total of the QE and the TFF was $400 billion, enabled by our prior treasurer. He had to sign a few things related to legislation. I've got that all documented. They're all implicated. So that's coming. All right, that's it for this one.